Hey, welcome to this week's Parsha class on Parshat Vayeshev. And I want to stay right in that first pasuk from the beginning of this Parsha and to think about what it means to return and what kinds of hopes you might bring with a return. And what kinds of hopes are maybe sort of appropriate, how to find the right balance in life. So at the beginning of this week's Parsha, right, it says, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. And Yaakov was settled in the land where his father had sojourned, the land of Canaan. Right, so Yaakov has been on this decades-long journey filled with like a lot of surprises, a lot of hard work, right? 7 + 7 years of work for Lavan, danger, anxiety, his wrestling match in last week's parsha, maybe sort of tense reunion with his brother Esav in last week's parsha. And then at the end of last week's parsha, he buries Yitzchak with Esav. They bury his father together, their father together. And so then he gets back home to Canaan, right, where he's only last been when Esav was threatening his life and he ran away in fear. And you can imagine that he sort of sighs with relief, like he sits down, Vayeshev, and right, he's able to be, got the t-shirt. He's able to be maybe at peace, to be in what we'll call is shalva, right? And that seems sort of applaudable, I would say, on some level, right? After all of the turmoil in his life, Yaakov can still calm himself to this point of being in shalva. Like I imagine some in Yaakov's shoes might have felt bitter or sort of spent and like not able to find the positives. And here, Yaakov is sitting Vayeshev. But Rashi offers us a sort of troubling midrash, where he says that Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalva. Yaakov wanted, he was asking to sit in shalva. Kafat alav ragzo shel Yosef, and that is when the trouble in connection with Yosef suddenly came upon him, jumped upon him. And then Rashi quotes this midrash, which I brought below, which we can look at a little bit more in depth, where it says, "Tzadikim mivakshim leishev b'shalva, amar Hakadosh Baruch Hu lo dayan latzadikim, ma shemetukan lahem laolam haba, ele shemavakshim leishev b'shalva ba'olam hazeh." Right, so when a righteous person like Yaakov, a tzaddik, wants to live in peace, God says to them, are not the righteous satisfied with what is stored up for them in the world to come, that they wish also to live at peace in this world? Yeah. And it sounds very harsh, right? Almost as if like God is chastising Yaakov for being greedy. He will get his peace in Olam Haba, and so he shouldn't expect to be allowed to have it in this world as well. And I think that this is a really, like, it's a heavy read, and it feels unfair. And we'll see that here, right, the midrash that Rashi is quoting from Breshit Rabbah is where Rav Acha brings in the Satan, which is interesting, right, very midrashi, that the Satan says, is that which is set for the righteous in the world to come not enough, that they seek serenity in this world? Right? Like almost as though the Satan is jealous of what they'll get in the next world. And so like he wants them to be lesser in this world, is sort of the way I understand it, which is why I will just add this note of levity. My husband, who is certainly a tzaddik, has a friend who thinks he's very funny. And he made Will a shirt that says, loser in olam hazeh, winner in olam haba. And I think that perhaps Ari feels like he is a winner in Olam Hazeh. And so it may be to console my husband, he made him this shirt. I'm not sure. We feel like we're winners in Olam Hazeh too, but I think that is sort of like the sum of the midrash, right? Like the Satan saying you can't be a winner in both. Better to be a loser in this world and a winner in Olam Haba. And interestingly, they're trying to connect Yaakov to the case of Eov, of Job. And so they bring this pasuk where there are several things that Eov is complaining about, right? I had no repose, I had no quiet, no rest, and then trouble came. And so the midrash says, oh, no repose, that's Esav giving him trouble. right when he threatens to murder him. No quiet, that's Lavan always trying to trick him. No rest, interestingly brings in the Dinah story, which I feel like often we sort of just gloss over. And then trouble came, the trouble of Yosef, right? And so they're tying all of the series of sort of unfortunate events into this pasuk from Eov. And I do think that Yaakov is being chastised here, right, according to this read. And I think that is sad, both in thinking about like the aging process, maybe. We're hoping at the shul, maybe a little advertisement break, to do a month about healthy aging or wise aging. And so thinking about Yaakov through that lens, like here's an older person who has had his very fair share of struggle in the world. And it would be so easy for him to fall into, that frustration or that anger. And instead he's mivakesh leishev b'shalva. He's saying, I want to find a way to sort of finish my life in a happy place. And God is saying, no, like that's not for you, Yaakov. Don't be greedy, right? Wait for Olam Haba. And so I think that feels hard. So I want to look for another way of thinking about this, which is to say that Vayeshev is actually a word that we already knew about Yaakov. It's the very first way that he's described to us in Parshat Toldot. So, right, it talks about how Yitzchak and Rivka have two sons. Esav is the one who hunts in the fields. V'Yaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim. Yaakov became a mild man. Interestingly, here it's translated as raising livestock, but yoshev ohalim, someone who sits in tents, right? Some people say he was studying in the Beit Midrash of Shem ve'ever. Whatever he is doing, he is someone who seems to be sitting in tents. And I learned this beautiful commentary of Rabbi Yosef Gikatila, who is a 13th century Spanish Kabbalist from my teacher and mentor, Rabbi Dr. Erin Lieb-Smokler, who's on faculty at Yeshivat Maharat. And she taught this beautiful text here to us, where Rabbi Gikatila, Tia, commenting on the idea of what it means to be a Yoshev Ohalim, says that this is to say that Yaakov represents the middle way, Husod Hamidah Emtsait, like the tie of the lulav, which I just love that sort of imagery that holds the two sides of the Hadassim and Aravot together. So too, Yaakov held two tents. The tent of Abraham, right, which we've talked about, Abraham and maybe Rivka sort of represent chesed, and then the tent of Yitzchak, who is more of din or gevura.
Yael?
Yes, please.
If I could you go back a little bit?
Sure.
Because the Hebrew has Yaakov as an ish tam.
Yeah.
And if you take that from the Haggadah, the tam is a simple one.
True. And the text, right, the Shari Ora, so I will stop butchering his name, is commenting on the Torah, right? The Torah is the one who says he's an Ishtam, which is interesting in terms of thinking about it as a Yoshev Ohalim, because I think that what the Shari Ora here is going to say is that to be a Yoshev Ohalim is actually quite difficult and nuanced. And so to think about what that means in relation to the Ishtam piece is interesting. I think you're right. That right, does simple here mean like a person of simple tastes or simple thoughts, right? It's hard to know. I mean, certainly through the way he behaves, we see a skillful manipulation at times. And so, it's hard to understand exactly what that would mean to think he was Tom, but yeah, definitely. It's an interesting description of him in general. That's how we're going to introduce like the main character, right? The protagonist of this portion of the story. Especially because we don't really know what Yoshev Ohalim means. So the Shari Ora is not, he's a Kabbalist. He's not interested in the Pshat necessarily. And so he's saying that Yaakov comes from a line which was divided, right? Abraham, the Baal Chesed, and Yitzchak, the Baal Gevura or the Baal Din, have two sort of separate approaches and ways of walking through the world, ways of thinking about how to be one of the Avot, right? And so this, Zehu Hasod, this is the secret of the Pasuk, Yoshev, Yaakov ish tam Yoshev Ohalim. Ki ma tzorech lomar Yoshev Ohalim, right? Why did it use the plural of tents? Hayalo lomar Yoshev ohel. It should have said he sits in one tent, right? It's sort of like you can't dance at two weddings, right? You can't sit in two tents. And so this teaches that Yaakov's midah was to stand between the two tents. Omedet ben shnei ohalim, umitayemet umeachezet yamin usmol b'midah ha'emta'i. Right, that he would stand between them and he would hold them together, the right and the left. Abraham that Abraham and Yitzchak were bound together in him, in Yaakov. So this is an interesting read of Yaakov that we have not thought about, and feels to me in some ways like it's very different than the Yaakov I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, right? The Yaakov who sort of is deceitful and gets what he wants by, manipulating, coming sort of from behind and running away from his problems. This is someone who sees sort of a tension, right? Almost like you could imagine, like as a kid, like if your parents are sort of fighting in that like clipped pretend nothing's wrong voices at dinner, right? And like you're aware of the tension and you're trying to like make everything okay. Like this is someone who really sees the nuance and who also has the ability to sit with it and to say it's okay for there to be different ways of doing things, right? To harmonize or maybe at least validate the approaches to life. And I think that it's important to note what Rabbi Smokler notes is that this is not easy, right? Sitting or settling doesn't necessarily connotate like a good easy life. It could be a great balancing act. And so maybe it's not the Vayeshev of Yaakov that's the struggle here. Maybe it's that he wanted to sit not in the tension of two tents, but in shalva, right? That's how Rashi understands it, but to sit in peace. It was like Yaakov had all of the drama of life and all of the difficulty and the heartbreak, right? And so he thought that like he could sort of be done with it. And instead of balancing the new tensions in his life, he wanted them to sort of just be gone. And so I think here in this light, which I think is a much kinder light, right? God isn't saying, I think, that Yaakov or any tzaddik should suffer. Like there are no losers in Olam Hazeh, but that they have to like find nuance and tension and respect and balance those things in this life. And the shalva, the ability to sort of step away from the balancing act, that's Olam Haba. And so, right, no longer is God saying you have to be a loser in this world. God is saying, look, this world is hard, right? Life is hard. And shalva, the sort of easiness will come in the Olam Haba. Yeah, please, whoever was talking, jump back in. Anna, did you have a comment?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, sorry. I couldn't see. I just heard someone on my screen. So far, I don't know which one resonates more. Definitely feel free to jump in. But the two options we have, right, are that either Yaakov wanted something that he didn't deserve in this world, or Yaakov wanted something that just doesn't exist in this world. And I think that piece really resonates for me, right? It's like when you sit and think about all the troubles that Yaakov has gone through, even if he brought some of them upon himself, it feels really hard. And I think that there's almost something comforting in being able to see oneself in that moment, right? Of saying, I just want it to be easy. And knowing that the message is like, it's not easy for anyone, right? It's okay. It's okay for it not to be easy. And it could be easier, or, we can get skills to balance those things. But that's not for anyone in this world. So the last sort of perspective that I want us to think about is maybe not about whether shalva is something that's attainable or not, but about when or how it's attainable. And this is, I think, about finding that inner peace as opposed to sort of an outer peace. So Rabbi David Silverberg wrote a beautiful article here where he notes that the language of the Midrash, I'm just going to scroll up for a second so we can look at it, is and I bolded the word here, right, is that shetzadikim yoshvim b'shalva umevakshim leishev b'shalva ba'olam hazeh. That's when the Satan comes, right? So when righteous people sit in shalva, but also when they request, when they have a desire to sit in shalva, that's when the Satan comes. And so maybe it's this like anticipation of shalva that is the problem of Yaakov's. And so it's not about wanting to find like a quiet moment, right? We finally returned from this journey. Let us have a nice dinner together. Let us all sit on the porch in the swing together, right? Let us put all the kids to bed and the parents can have tea together. Whatever that moment of shalva that Yaakov was seeking, if it had been momentary and in that moment, it would have been fine. But what Yaakov's trouble was that he was trying to anticipate some perfect shalva that was like coming his way, right? And so what he says is Chazal here alert us to the fact that every stage of life and every circumstance we find ourselves in poses its own unique challenges. We should not delude ourselves into thinking that once we solve our current problems, we will enjoy unbridled shalva or serenity, because unbridled shalva, tranquility, is an experience only in the next world, not in this one. The Midrash.
That's really depressing.
Okay, tell me why. I find it less depressing. Yeah, tell me, Tammy.
Wait, less than what?
Less than, I guess, the first read, certainly. Right, less than being told, like, if you want to be a winner at Olam Haba, you have to suffer now.
So is it all referring to later as the Olam Haba? It can't be later next week when I'm on vacation. It's all like, is it all Olam Hazeh or Olam Haba?
So I think that is that's Rashi and the Midrash, is it's all Olam Haba or all Olam Hazeh. So if you're a tzaddik, you're going to get it in Olam Haba, so you're not going to get it here.
You
right?
can't have both. Why can't you have two good things?
So I think that what Rabbi Silverberg is suggesting is you can have good things in this world, right? But not lasting perfect forever, right? So like
it sounds like you can't kind of expect it.
You can't expect it, or maybe you can't even want it in a way that feels like finished. Right? Like Yaakov comes back shalem, complete, finished, and that's it. No more problems, right? That seems to be maybe what Rabbi Silverberg's read of the Midrash's critique is, right? Is that he slipped into like this comfort of thinking that once he solved one set of issues, he should sort of like, he checked that box in life, dealt with issues, and now he like was done. And that when we do that, then it is sort of gloomy, right? Like, right, that's the word he uses here. Like, it is gloomy if that's how you think about life, that you want to check the box and then move on. And then, of course, there's always problems, right? There's always challenges in any stage of life. And like, I think to think that like once you're done with high school, you're like, oh, I'm done with all that friendship drama. And then like you become a mom and you're like, oh man, other moms are mean, right? Just like high school girls are mean. I can't speak for other phases in life, but for me, that was certainly true, right? Or you think like, oh, I fought with my husband early in marriage and now the rest of our life will be fine, right? Because I think in some ways that shalva is maybe about like not wanting, and this is where I think Rabbi Galikta and Glikatila and Rabbi Silverberg sort of work together, is that if you think that like shalva is just not having to work hard at things anymore, that's the problem, right? That's like when things start to like go downhill. And so if you think that you can just look ahead to like some perfect future where you won't have to work hard, then you won't have that shalva, right? Because you don't have it, you're not working for it. And if you work for it, then you might get it a little bit, right? And so I think that then maybe, I don't know, this is sort of what I heard in God's voice now, right? The first one was like, Yaakov, why be greedy? The second one was like, Yaakov, no one gets peace in this world at all. And the third one, right, this is like maybe the third voice I heard is almost like a parent to a child, right? Like Yaakov, this lasting and complete shalva that you get without having to work. that thing you're searching for is actually not for anyone in this world or the next world, right? Like, in this world for anyone, tzaddik, not tzaddik, right? Someone who's had hard things, not hard things, but it's waiting for you in the next world. Then that's like an enormous gift Hashem is giving him. He's saying, look, life is hard and you will have to work hard and you'll have to continue working hard after all the drama in your life before. But at least know that when you get to Olam Haba, unlike the vast majority of the humans, right? You're a tzaddik. You're going to get this amazing thing in the next world. So like, know that you have it coming for you and work hard in this world. I don't know if that's better or worse.
I wanted to just say as an aside,
Yeah.
my mother was born in Poland in 1922.
Okay.
So she came to this country in 1950, so she was a survivor. And she always said that her father would say, when he would give a bracha or a blessing,
Yeah.
that he would say, B'shulam v'shalva. So he always blessed her with peace, shalom, and shalva. Now, I'm sure he heard that from his father, who was born in the late 1800s. So I think this is something that Jewish people, we believe that we could get it in this world. Why would you be blessed? Why would you say that?
So I think that the idea, I agree with you, Anna, and I think that's beautiful. Although I think that sometimes those brachot come when we don't have them, right? I imagine your mother and your father and your grandfather's lives were not easy in Poland, right? And so you bless someone with what you wish that you could have for yourself.
Right.
But I also think that the goal or the idea, right, is that you find that shalom and shalva in whatever stage you are in, whether it's perfect or not perfect, right? Whether it's come after hard things and you have to still work, or whether it's come after something easy and you can take a break, you can coast, right? But that you're not looking for a perfect or absolute shalom and shalva. You're looking for that momentary space of shalom or shalva. And I first taught this last year when this Parsha coincided roughly with Thanksgiving. That Shabbat of Thanksgiving. And I was thinking that one of the other things in this first pasuk is this idea that he's going back to Megurei Aviv, to the place where his father had done his things. And the commentaries understand that maybe it's about the conversions Abraham did and Yitzchak did, or maybe it's about the wells that Yitzchak dug. And I was thinking that when you come home, whatever that means, when you return to a place and you want to sort of be seen as someone who like got it together, right? Who feels confident, who did all the work of turmoil and transition and then comes back successful, right? Whether that's like going home on Thanksgiving or returning to your alma mater, for a reunion, or coming back to the land where your parents were very successful. And you left as a teenager who was like running from a family feud, right? That I could imagine that Yaakov wanted to like present himself as in Shalva, right? I went away, I did all this crazy stuff that happened to me, and now I've come back really successful, riding in with my big family and my big flocks, and able to prove that like it was all worth it, and I got the Shalva. And so God is saying, like, you're missing the point, Yaakov. The journey was not about proving that you've come back complete, that the journey is about growing and maturing, right? And doing that means knowing not to expect a complete shalva, but still finding a way to be shalem with yourself, even when you don't have a lasting shalva. And so, right, no one expects you to come back complete, right? Maybe that's like part of the lesson. No one expects anyone to be living bishalva all the time. And so the real goal is to be shalem while you're yoshev ohavim, right? While you acknowledge the tensions and nuances in your life, and to still be able to find those momentary moments of shalva in your life that can help you, right, both appreciate what you have and also, like, balance yourself and strengthen yourself for difficulties that might lie ahead, right? Because I really have trouble buying into the idea that like Yosef's drama comes from this as like a punishment. I think it's more like, you know, he wanted to sit in that perfect shalva, and then something else bad happens, like that was going to happen anyway, right? And so it's all about how you can find the strength to react to those things, knowing that nothing really lasts forever, good or bad, right? And that's how you can find the inner peace. And once you find the inner peace, then you know that shalva is sort of just around the corner. When you can like sit steadily in between two things, which is not an easy thing to do. You can tell I haven't totally sold you, Tammy.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more in a smaller time sense than, you know, the Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh, or, you know, for years on end and sitting and relaxing. And I was just like, a little peace, a little quiet would be nice.
Yeah. And it seems like it's hard, you know, it's hard to gauge how long Yaakov is in Canaan before the Yosef dreams, you know, sort of pop up and everything gets a little bit tense. But I agree with you, Tammy, right? It wouldn't have been unreasonable for him to expect a year or two, right? Maybe more, to be able to see his grandchildren, right? But I think that's the point, right? That's when it starts to get like it's a slippery slope, right? Like, it's not that he deserves to sit in shalva or doesn't deserve it, right? It's about how you find it, maybe is what I really mean.
And that makes sense to me. You know, maybe there is shalva in your life, you just don't know how to access it. Right?
Yeah, and so somehow mivakesh shalva, right? Like almost as if you imagine like Yaakov going out to God with his hands up, saying like, God, come on, please give me some of that. Yes. And Hashem is like, listen, like it's not for me to give you an olam haba, right? I can only give it to you in olam haba. In olam hazeh, you have to find it. You've got to work for it. You know, maybe that's the most kind read of God's answer to him. Shalva in this world is you know, of your own making.
Yeah.
Because the worksheet that you gave us seems to suggest that if you're in shalva, that means you're not working hard or working towards anything. And that's when Satan comes in.
Right. Almost like that idle hands idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you say that shalva would be spiritual peace?
So I think that is a beautiful read. And I think that, right, then you could be in shalva even when hard things are happening, right? And then you don't have to mivakesh it. You can make that happen for yourself. And that's really hard, right? Like that's, that might be the hardest way to read it of all, but the most valuable.
Okay.
It looks like from this perspective that Yaakov was in a transitional phase in his life. He was working very hard, developed his family, got all those herds, he tricked Lavan, he got, you know, into Canaan. And it's a transitional phase. It's like moving from active employment into retirement. And he was looking for the serenity and the peace and the contentment, and it just didn't happen. It's not the retirement that he had thought it would be. And it's he was in a transitional phase and trying to accommodate himself to what he thought it would be. Going back. That he had worked so hard, and now he was going back, and he thought it would just be lovely once he worked it out with Esau.
Yeah, definitely. Avery, did you have something to add?
Well, I like the idea of saying that it's more of an internal equanimity. If we translate shalva as equanimity, that implies that it's something that you find spiritually within yourself, regardless of what is going on in the surround. Whereas peace can mean either way, like some external thing or some internal thing. So I like that idea. But when he's mivakesh, that implies that he doesn't understand. If that's the solution, he doesn't understand the solution. If he's asking for it, unless he's asking God to grant him equanimity, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, I think my read was your first read, right? Which sort of fits into what Bobby was saying, right? It's like when you get into your retirement, it might actually be good, right? But if you don't sort of feel good about it or at peace about it, then like nothing really ends up being good. And so that equanimity, I like that. That's like, I think a much more accurate translation in that way, is really what you're striving for, because no matter how much free time you have, how many of your kids live nearby, right? Like Yaakov had his whole family, he had lots of riches, but he couldn't find it for himself. It makes me wonder, like, how might he have approached the Yosef situation differently, right? If he had had that inner shalva, might he have parented differently? I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
And, if he was asking God for that, that's actually a beautiful thing, right? To say, like, I'm ready now. All of those distractions are behind me. I'm ready to work on that, cultivating that inner shalva, but can you help me, God? Right? That's actually a beautiful read of Yaakov. Right. For so long in his life, he was in the like head down, get through it phase. And now he's finally in a place where he can work on himself. That's a really nice read.
That's the transitional phase.
Yeah. Yeah. And for some people, like, life is not easy, right? Like, bad things keep on happening, whether it's like you lose your job or something goes wrong in your family or your health is not good, or, whatever the thing is. And sometimes those people still seem remarkably happy. And like, I am certainly more of a Yaakov, and I'm like, how could they be happy? Right. I wouldn't be happy. But there's something amazing about that experience, to be able to sort of have that inner peace that allows you to sit in like a rocky place and like, sail through. But it's hard. It's hard. And maybe it's something you have to work on yourself. To me, this is the thing that most endears me to Yaakov, and maybe makes me like feel the most like, if Yaakov couldn't have it, then like, I understand why I'm not good at it, but like, I could be inspired to try harder at it, type of thing. Even though such a terrible thing does come to Yaakov, because we can remember that in the end, right, in three or 4 weeks, he will be surrounded by all his children on his deathbed, and he will have the time to sort of impart messages to them. And so at some point he gets there, maybe, but not yet, even though he wants to. So, gosh, I said I was going to teach something more uplifting this week, and I thought I was there, and then I ended on such a low note. I think that we can all strive to seek this inner shalva, and know that even though it might be there for us in Olam Haba, that it's in our hands maybe to find it in this world. And with that, we can conquer anything that comes our way. That's a much more beautiful ending. Anyone else?
You can all think about Anna's grandparents, father, and the blessing, because it really is a beautiful blessing.
Yeah.
Shalom.
Yeah.
Shalom.
That's one you don't usually get that one, right? You get parnassa, you get health, you don't really get serenity.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean,
Everyone should have a
one.
week filled with shalom and shalva.
Agreed.
And great that they went together. I feel like it must come from this, that they come together.
And then it must come from the older generations. It, came from the great grandparents and the great great grandparents. So.
Yeah. To be in this, sort of covenantal agreement with God, right? To be like in Yaakov's chain is to be someone who blesses with shalom and shalva. That's lovely. Beautiful.
Okay.
With those two things, everything else can come.
That's it.
Yes. Yes, maybe that's like the best way to think about it, right? If you have that, then nothing will shake you from being able to sit in that tension, because you have that inner grounding to keep you centered. Beautiful. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a week filled with shalom and shalva, a year, a decade, many
A lifetime.
Exactly. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
And I'll be teaching a different class on Sunday. I wasn't willing to part with my Parsha slot and all of you wonderful people on Tuesday. So I'll be teaching a Hanukkah class on Sunday, and then we can meet back in our, oh, I'm sorry. I might be jumping ahead here. Oh no, this Sunday is the first day of Hanukkah. Time
Is it on Zoom?
I'm going to stop recording now.
Yael, is it on Zoom?